The clap that changed the whole room. Everyone inside the Grand Award Hall remembered that moment, even months later. The lights were soft and golden, the crowd was dressed in elegant clothes, and the air was filled with excitement as the host walked onto the glowing stage. People whispered predictions, phones were ready, cameras pointed everywhere. It felt like another normal award night, until Sandra Bullock's name was called. The hall erupted with applause, but one sound rose above everything else. One clap stood out, filled with emotion instead of noise. It came from Keanu Reeves. People turned instantly, cameras zoomed in on him. He wasn't clapping like a celebrity. He was clapping like someone watching a person he deeply respected overcome a lifetime of battles. His eyes shone with a soft light, his smile gentle, his expression full of pride and something unspoken. And for a moment, it felt like the whole room was clapping because he was. But what nobody knew was this. Sandra didn't want to win, not tonight, she didn't even want to be there. As she stood up slowly, her breath shaky, her hands trembling, Keanu noticed immediately. Something was wrong. She looked around the room not with joy, but with fear, like she had been keeping a secret too heavy for months, and it was about to break open on the brightest night of her career. Keanu leaned forward slightly, whispering just loud enough for her to hear across the short distance between their tables. "You're going to be okay," he said. "I'm right here." Those words steadied her for a moment. But when she stepped toward the stage, the crowd cheering, flashlights blinding her, she felt something inside her crack. On the surface, she looked calm and graceful, but inside she was shaking. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was beating too fast, and deep down she knew the applause wasn't what terrified her. It was the person sitting at the back of the hall. Someone she hoped would never appear in her life again. Her eyes flicked toward the far corner. There he was, the person she had spent years avoiding. The one who once controlled every step she took in her early career. The one who made promises that always came with strings attached. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't clapping. He was just staring at her with a cold, quiet expression that sent chills down her spine. Sandra forced herself to keep walking. Keanu noticed her glance, the sudden change in her breathing, the stiffness in her shoulders. He knew her well enough to see the fear she tried to hide. He watched her step onto the stage, watched her try to steady her shaking hands as she accepted the award. And he watched her eyes scan the crowd again, just to make sure the man was still far away. She began her speech in a soft, trembling voice. "Thank you, this means more than I can say," but halfway through, her voice cracked. She paused, trying to breathe. The audience thought it was emotion. Keanu knew it was fear. He stood up quietly, just enough so she could see him from the stage. He folded his hands in front of him, his expression warm and steady, silently telling her she wasn't alone. She took another breath and continued, her voice small but brave. "I want to thank the people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Her eyes drifted to Keanu again. He gave her the smallest nod. But then something unexpected happened. The man in the back stood up. Sandra's breath caught. She lost her place in the speech. The hall murmured, wondering why she suddenly looked pale. Keanu turned and saw the man moving toward the aisle slowly, like he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Sandra gripped the award tightly, her fingers turning white. Keanu stepped out from his table, heart pounding, ready to protect her. And that was the moment everybody realized. This night was not about the award. It was about the truth she had been hiding. And the man who came to collect it. The clap that shook the whole room. The room was still buzzing from Sandra's emotional award speech, but she was not thinking about the trophy in her hands. Her mind was stuck on the way Keanu clapped for her. It wasn't loud or showy. It wasn't for cameras. It was soft, slow, and so full of emotion that people around him actually paused just to watch him. No one expected that kind of reaction from him, not for anyone, not even for himself. And as Sandra walked backstage, her heart was racing with a strange mix of pride and fear. She had seen Keanu emotional before, but tonight, he looked like someone fighting a storm inside. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, the way his eyes followed her, the way his hands trembled slightly when he clapped, as if the meaning behind her words had touched something deep inside him. Backstage was loud and chaotic, cameras everywhere, assistants moving quickly, people cheering for her. But Sandra felt strangely alone. She couldn't get rid of the feeling that someone was watching her, someone with an intention very different from Keanu's gentle support. She tried to focus, but when a staff member placed a bouquet in her hands, Her fingers brushed against a small folded paper hidden between the flowers. Her breath caught. She stepped aside, away from the crowd, and carefully pulled the paper free. The message was short and terrifying. "Meet me alone, you owe me answers." Her stomach twisted. She knew exactly who wrote it, someone from her past, someone she hoped she would never have to face again. She whispered, "No, not tonight." Before she could hide the fear on her face, a quiet voice spoke behind her. "Sandra, what's wrong?" She turned around. Keanu was standing there. The noise of the event faded as soon as she saw him. His eyes were soft but filled with concern. She tried to smile but couldn't. "Keanu, you shouldn't be back here." He shook his head gently. "I saw your face when you read that note. Please talk to me." Her fingers trembled as she hid the paper behind her. "It's nothing, just someone who wants to congratulate me." He didn't believe that, not for a second. He took one step closer, lowering his voice. "You don't have to pretend with me." Before she could answer, her assistant rushed over to take her on stage for a photo session. Keanu stepped back quietly, letting her go, but he didn't leave. His eyes followed her until she disappeared into the crowd. Something inside him felt uneasy, like he was watching someone walk straight toward danger without realizing it. When Sandra finally reached the far end of the backstage hall, she removed herself from the celebration and slipped through a side door, thinking she'd find a quiet moment to breathe. Instead, she found someone waiting. The man leaned against the wall, his expression cold, his eyes burning with disappointment and anger. Sandra's throat tightened. "You ignored me for a year," he said, "and now you pretend I don't exist." She whispered, "Please, not today." He stepped closer. "You owe me the truth." Before she could speak, a shadow moved behind her. A quiet, steady voice broke the tension. "She doesn't owe you anything." Sandra froze. The man turned sharply. KeanuReeves stood in the doorway, eyes calm, posture firm, as if he had walked through fire just to reach her. "Keanu," she whispered. His eyes never left the man. "If you have something to say, you can say it with me here." The man narrowed his eyes. "This has nothing to do with you." Keanu's voice remained soft, but unshakable. "It does now." Sandra felt her pulse pounding. She didn't expect Keanu to follow her. She didn't expect him to step into danger. But he did. Because her fear became his fear. And the man's anger suddenly became something worse, something aimed not at her, but at Keanu. The moment behind the curtain. The applause was still echoing in the grand hall when Sandra stepped backstage, clutching her award with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The crowd adored her, the cameras loved her, but now that she was finally alone, she felt something entirely different. Her breath was uneven, her chest tight, her mind racing. Winning the award felt huge, but it also felt heavy, like it pushed open a door she had been avoiding for years. Keanu followed a few steps behind, but he didn't rush her. He walked slowly, quietly, giving her the space she needed while silently making sure she didn't fall apart alone. He saw the way she held herself too stiffly, the way she swallowed emotions that were far too big to hide. He whispered gently, "Sandra, breathe." She stopped near a dim corner behind the heavy stage curtains and closed her eyes. But instead of breathing, she felt tears burning behind her eyelids. It wasn't the award that made her break. It was what she saw while standing on that stage. In the crowd near the far back row, she thought she saw someone she never wanted to face again, someone from her past, someone whose name she didn't dare say aloud. Keanu stepped closer, concern filling his voice. "You're shaking. Tell me what's wrong." She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. She finally whispered, "I think he's here." Keanu frowned softly. "Who?" She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "The man who tried to take credit for my work years ago, the one who almost cost me everything. I thought he disappeared, but tonight, I saw someone who looked just like him." Keanu's eyes softened, but his voice stayed steady. "And you're scared he'll try again?" Sandra nodded slowly. "I've worked so hard to rise above that dark time, and tonight when I won it felt like a victory. But if he's really here, I don't know what he wants. I don't know if he wants to ruin me again." Keanu's jaw tightened, but his tone remained gentle. "You're not alone anymore. Whatever this is, we face it together." She looked up at him, eyes trembling. "Why are you always here for me, even when I don't ask?" Keanu smiled softly, that same humble smile millions of people loved about him. Because you deserve people who stay. Before she could respond, a stage manager hurried over. Sandra, someone S asking for you backstage. He said he knows you from years ago. Her stomach dropped. Keanu immediately stepped between her and the manager. Describe him. Tall, dark suit, serious look on his face, the manager replied. That was enough to break Sandra's remaining calm. Keanu took her hand firmly. You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. She squeezed his hand back. No, I need to. I can't run forever. They walked together down the narrow backstage hallway, the air thick with silence and fear. Sandra's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy, but Keanu never let go of her hand. His presence grounded her, steadying each of her trembling steps. When they turned the corner, her breath froze completely. A man stood there, exactly as she remembered him. Older, sharper, bitterness in his eyes. The past she fought so hard to escape was now staring directly at her. But something felt different. He wasn't angry. He wasn't smirking. He looked broken. He stepped forward and whispered, Sandra, I didn't come here to hurt you. Keanu instantly moved in front of her. Say what you need from a distance. The man raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. His voice trembled. I'm not here to ruin your night. I'm here because I need to tell you something before someone else gets to you. Sandra blinked in confusion. Someone else. The man nodded. Yes, I'm not the danger anymore, he is. Keanu tensed. Who? The man swallowed hard. The person who funded me, the man who wanted to own everything you created, he's back, and he's looking for you. Sandra felt her whole body go cold. Keanu stepped even closer, protective and calm. Why are you telling us this now? The man lowered his eyes. Because I don't want him to destroy you the way he destroyed me. Sandra felt fear and shock twisting inside her. And then the man whispered something that made her knees weaken. He's already inside this building. The moment the whole room stopped breathing. The applause inside the grand hall was still echoing when Sandra walked backstage, holding her award close to her chest. She should have been smiling, she should have been celebrating, but her hands were shaking, her breath uneven, and her mind felt like it was spinning too fast. The lights, the cheering, the sudden attention, none of it felt real. None of it felt safe. She tried to steady herself, but her knees were weak. And just when she thought she might collapse, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, expecting a stage assistant. But it was Keanu. His expression was a mix of concern and something deeper, something gentle that he didn't even try to hide anymore. Sandra, he said softly, are you all right? She forced a smile. I'm fine, I think I just need a moment. But Keanu had watched her for years. He knew the difference between I'm fine and I'm close to falling apart. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Your hands are shaking. She swallowed, looking away. I know, it's stupid. I've done this 100 times before. I don't know why I suddenly feel like I can't breathe. Keanu gently took the award from her hands and placed it on a nearby table. Then, with the softest touch, he held her wrists, warming them with his palms, grounding her. Sandra closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth in, letting herself feel safe. But safety didn't last long. A sudden noise came from the far end of the hallway, something heavy falling, followed by hurried footsteps. Sandra flinched. Keanu instantly turned his head, alert. His posture changed from gentle to protective in one breath. Stay behind me, he whispered. The corridor, once filled with backstage workers and staff, now looked strangely empty. The lights flickered for a second, and Sandra felt her chest tighten again. Something wasn't right. Then a man appeared from the shadows, walking toward them with a strange confidence. Keanu moved subtly, placing himself between Sandra and the unknown figure. Sandra's heartbeat grew louder. KeanuReeves, the man said with a strange smile, just the person I wanted to see. Keanu's voice remained calm. How can I help you? The man's eyes shifted to Sandra. Congratulations on your award, he said, but his tone didn't sound like praise. It sounded like a warning. Sandra stepped back slightly, and Keanu noticed. What do you want? Keanu asked again, this time more firmly. The man shrugged. Oh, nothing much, just a conversation. He paused, then added with unsettling casualness, or maybe a reminder. Sandra felt cold run through her body. Keanu, she whispered behind him, I know him. Keanu didn't look back, but his voice softened enough for her to hear. Who is he? Someone connected to my past, she said, trembling. Someone who tried to control my early career, someone who didn't like hearing no. The man chuckled quietly. You always had a dramatic way of remembering things, Sandra. Keanu's jaw tightened. You should leave. The man's smile faded. I will, but before I go, I need her to understand something. He took one slow step forward, and Keanu immediately stepped forward too, blocking his path. The man's eyes darkened. You can protect her for tonight, Keanu, but you won't always be around, and when you're not, I will get the answer she still owes me. Sandra gasped. Keanu's breathing grew heavy not from fear, but from anger he rarely let surface. This ends now, Keanu said steadily. Whatever she owes you, she doesn't owe it anymore. She is free from your control. The man stared at him for a long, tense moment, then smirked. We will see. He walked away, disappearing down the hall like a shadow melting into darkness. The silence that followed was heavy. Sandra slowly stepped toward Keanu, her voice fragile. I thought he was gone. I thought he moved on. Why is he here? Keanu turned to her, his eyes full of something soft and steady. Because some people only learn to let go when someone stands beside the person they want to break. She trembled. Keanu, he's not going to stop. Keanu gently lifted her chin so she could look into his eyes. Then I won't stop either, he said quietly. I'm here for as long as you need. And in that dim backstage hallway, after a night filled with applause and danger, Sandra realized something she hadn't understood until now. His emotional clap wasn't the only highlight of the night. His promise was the moment everyone saw, but no one understood. The whole hall was still buzzing from Sandra's emotional acceptance speech, but something else stole the spotlight that night. Even though the cameras were still rolling and the award show was live, a strange tension settled over the room. People whispered. Heads turned. Something was happening backstage, and it had nothing to do with trophies or speeches. Keanu noticed it first. He was standing near the side curtains, waiting for Sandra to finish talking with staff members. He planned to congratulate her again in private, just the two of them without the noise of the stage. But suddenly, a security guard rushed past him, followed by a second one. Their expressions were sharp, alert, like they were responding to a problem. Keanu frowned. Is something wrong? He asked gently. The guard hesitated, then said in a low voice, Someone slipped into the backstage area, someone who shouldn't be here. Keanu's heart tightened. His first instinct wasn't fear for himself, it was fear for Sandra. He stepped closer. Where is Sandra right now? The guard answered, She's in the photo lounge. We're trying to keep her safe. Keanu didn't wait. He moved fast, his steps calm but strong, weaving through crew members and stage assistants. He found Sandra standing near a display of cameras, still smiling politely as journalists captured her moment. But even from a distance, Keanu could see the worry in her eyes. She sensed the tension too, even if she didn't know why. She looked at him as soon as he approached. Keanu, is something happening? Everyone looks tense. He touched her arm gently, guiding her away from the photographers. We need to go somewhere quieter. Her smile faded. She nodded without question. She trusted him. They walked down a hallway, the noise of the crowd fading behind them. Sandra placed her hand over her heart, trying to steady her breathing. Did something go wrong with the event? Is someone hurt? Keanu hesitated, not wanting to scare her. Someone got inside who shouldn't be here. Her steps stopped. Is it about me? Keanu looked at her, and the silence was enough for her to understand. Her voice trembled. This is about the messages I've been getting, isn't it? The ones I tried to ignore. Keanu's eyes softened. You didn't want to worry anyone, I know, but ignoring danger doesn't always make it disappear. Sandra ran a hand through her hair, trying to stop her fear from taking over. I thought maybe it was just a fan who got too emotional. Her brother's voice suddenly echoed from behind them. No, it wasn't just a fan. Sandra jerked around. She hadn't seen him arrive. He looked uneasy, breathless, as if he ran the whole way inside. Sandra, he said, you need to come with me now. Keanu stepped in front of her protectively. Tell us what's going on. Her brother looked around, making sure no one was listening. The man who's been sending her messages, he's here, in this building. Sandra's face turned pale. No, that can't be. I didn't tell anyone where I'd be. Her brother whispered, "He found out through someone you worked with. He's obsessed, Sandra. He thinks tonight was supposed to be his moment with you." Keanu felt a deep heat spread through his chest. Not anger, something stronger, something protective. "Where is he now?" Keanu asked. "Security is searching," her brother replied. "But he's unpredictable if he finds Sandra first." Keanu didn't let him finish. He took Sandra's hand, holding it tightly. "We're not letting anything happen to her." Sandra's voice cracked. "Keanu, I don't want anyone hurt because of me." Keanu leaned closer. "You're not the reason for his choices. People who cross lines were already broken long before they reach you." But the hallway suddenly became silent. Too silent. Keanu turned his head. A shadow moved at the far end of the corridor. Then the figure stepped into the dim light. The same man from the messages. The same man who had been watching her quietly for months. He stared at Sandra with an expression that made her blood freeze. And then he whispered her name, like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. The night that changed everything for both of them. The applause slowly softened, but the emotion in the room stayed heavy, like a warm echo that refused to fade. Sandra stood on the award stage, clutching the golden trophy with trembling hands. The lights shined softly on her face, showing the tears she tried to hide. She looked beautiful, grateful, overwhelmed, and still recovering from the chaos of the night. But even in all the noise, she only searched for one face in the giant audience. Keanu. He stood at the edge of the stage now, the soft spotlight brushing his shoulders as if it recognized the quiet strength in him. He wasn't clapping anymore. He was just looking at her the same way he looked at the moon when he thought no one was watching, with tenderness, with respect, and with a softness so sincere that it didn't feel real. Sandra's heart pulled tight inside her chest. She had never wanted someone to understand her the way she wanted Keanu to understand her in that exact moment. He stepped closer as the crowd began to stand, cheering louder now, but he barely seemed aware of the noise. His eyes did not leave her. His steps were gentle, almost hesitant, like he was afraid to disturb the fragile emotion in the air. When he reached the stairs of the stage, Sandra let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She whispered, "Keanu." He answered softly, "You did it." Those 3 words hit her harder than the applause. Because they didn't come from admiration. They came from someone who knew how hard the journey had been. The last few days had been full of unexpected dangers, the threatening messages, the man from her past, the contract she thought would destroy her life, the fear of facing everything again. But now, standing under the warm golden lights, she felt something inside her finally settle. Keanu stepped closer, looking into her eyes as if searching for old wounds he hoped were healing. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "You look like you've been holding your breath for years." Sandra laughed softly, her voice breaking. "I think I have." Keanu smiled at her in that gentle way he only used when he truly cared about someone. "You can breathe now," he said. "It's over, he left. Everything you were running from, it's gone." Her tears finally fell. "I couldn't have done this without you." He shook his head slowly. "You already had the strength, I just stood next to you." His humility struck her again, the same way it had struck her earlier, when she had looked down from the stage and seen him clapping for her like she was someone who mattered, someone he believed in with his whole heart. She remembered how the cameras turned toward him and how the audience gasped at the emotion in his eyes. His clap wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was gentle, slow, full of respect, the kind of clap that comes from a soul that knows pain and healing. And now he was standing in front of her, still holding that same softness in his gaze. The host gently handed Sandra a bouquet of white flowers, but she barely looked at them. Her attention was on Keanu. The noise around them faded again. The cameras flashed, but she didn't care. For just a moment, the entire award show felt like a small, quiet room built only for them. Keanu whispered, "Can I walk you down the stage?" She nodded, her cheeks warm. "Please." He offered his hand. She took it, their fingers intertwined, steady and natural, as if they had been walking together for years. The audience melted into a blur as they stepped down slowly. Sandra felt safe, grounded, and deeply understood. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Keanu, smile." But he didn't, he wasn't performing. He was focusing only on Sandra. "You're shaking," he whispered. "I think I'm still overwhelmed," she admitted. He stepped closer, gently brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said. "Not tonight, not after everything." Her heart swelled at the soft gesture, the same softness that had drawn millions to him over the years. When they finally reached the floor, the audience erupted again, thinking the moment was part of the celebration. But for Sandra and Keanu, it was private, meaningful, healing. She looked up at him. "Keanu, what now?" He smiled in that calm, honest way that melted her entirely. "Now," he whispered, "you let your life be yours again." She exhaled, a long breath that carried years of fear out of her body. And he added even more softly, "If you want, I can stay in it for a while." Sandra felt a warm wave inside her chest. "I want that." Keanu nodded gently. "Then we start from here from tonight." The crowd roared, the music played, and the cameras flashed. But the real story happened in that quiet moment between two hearts, finally safe enough to breathe.